she brought in to make it calm. Goes with her. And so all the BS is just sitting there, fully raw and exposed. And we same kind of people move back into. Okay, so I'm a stay-at-home mom and I'm also going to school.
Now, where are you going to school at?
To Bry.
What are you doing there?
Accounting and project management.
You go into night classes?
I'm doing some night classes and some online. So I only have a few classes that I have to go to the school for, and basically I had explained to Dale that for some of the math classes I needed to go to an actual class because...
Was that to get the heck out of the house for a little bit? Outside of yourself?
Yeah. I thought, okay, I can get a degree, and there wasn't a term or there was... Maybe I could have some self-worth again. Because even though I was lonely and I love being lonely, when he comes home every week and says, I want this paycheck, or you spend all of money, I do this, I do that, what do you do? And the fact that you help them with their homework, and that dinner's made, and that the clothes are clean and folded, and doesn't count for crap, it's a bit tiring to hear.
Was he upset that you lost your job?
No, he didn't seem upset. He was upset about the loss of the money, but not about the loss of the time.
Okay.
He liked the time.
He liked you to be at home?
If I was at home and able to answer the phone whenever he called, the world was a beautiful place. But it didn't matter if I was at home and unable to answer the phone, and I called him right back, and then I was, off doing something horrible, and was an evil person, go away.
Well, when you went to school, that must have caused conflict. Because now you're going to be going a couple nights a week, and who's going to take care of the girls?
He did not like it, and so I created study groups that would come over to my house.
Okay.
And that way Dale had knew everybody from the school with, knew Stan, knew Julie, knew them all, so he met them, and he saw them every week at our house, and we were working projects together. So for him, it wasn't me getting away from the house. It was me bringing outside world to our house.
Okay.
It was okay.
Okay.
Because, he would joke around and help him, and he was a brilliant. If he had more parental support, I think he would have amazingly fun.
Are his parents here in Arizona?
I guess his parents are Marine family. They literally, when they shut down the mine in Eagle Mountain, they left.
Okay.
They're mine family. They do not understand the concept of higher education. They do not understand the concept that a high school diploma does not mean anything anymore.
Is he an only child?
He's the second out of three.
Okay.
His sister and him are twins.
How did you get along with his parents?
Or
Did you see him often, or?
in the beginning, I tried to be very open and understanding about it, and we had huge fights, and it was always my fault, of course. They would always make sure that it was always my fault. But
What would you fight about?
them treating my kids different. Anything, in all honesty, anything I said was wrong. And I was going to school and got really interested in I have to take science class and got really interested in the discovery of the gene that lets you know if you're an indicator for higher risk of cancer or not. I thought that was the coolest damn thing in the world. And I actually searched out more articles and more information because I wanted to read about it. I thought that is great. And, the fact that we can figure out if we're likely to get something more than somebody else, so we can avoid it.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm sorry, I think that's really cool. And I had mentioned it in one of the conversations we were having, Dale and I talked about it. He thought it was a pretty neat idea, not something he was totally interested in, but he had a neat idea. And he mentioned it, and his father was like, well, that doesn't mean that Dale's going to get cancer just because his mom had cancer. I said, no, but if the gene runs in the family, and I was trying to explain how genetics work. My mistake, I should have known better. You don't ever explain basic genetics to somebody who has an 8th grade education. It's not going to happen. huge argument, and I got told that I was a know-it-all bitch, and I got upset. Which then, of course, Dale got upset because I got upset, and how dare I talk back to his father. That's a lot of our relationship.
So I take it you probably haven't seen them in a while?
They actually came down this last Thanksgiving, and it had been 5 years.
Wow. Did they stay with you?
They stayed in our house. I invited them to it. I told them this weekend doesn't go well, and we're to their parents and we'll be in my house again.
How did it go?
They were actually very well behaved. Which leads me to believe that 5 years without your grandchildren can do that.
That's true.
It's unfortunate it went to that, but he backed me on that, which was pretty awesome because he watched. It used to always be I was the bitch for starting arguments, and finally on one of them, his parents held me responsible for his statements, and then that added insult to injury because first off, they're pissed off at me. Second off, they're not giving him credit for his idea. That is a double-edged sword there. So that was what stopped them from seeing our family for a long time. But he, during the time when they were first cut out, he was awesome. And then we moved into her old house, and I'm trying to remember when we were in. Fifth grade? Sixth. I think, sorry. Go back there. It should have been fifth grade. And that started a whole other set of agitators.
So after the death of your dad in the 80s, you guys go home and you move on. You stay at home with the kids, you work in, you guys are trying to survive. Then you decide to go back to school. What year was that? 6 years ago?
That would have been
2003 or 2011?
would have been, well, I started doing online classes before Dana was born, but I had to take a break because the pregnancy was so bad that I could only take one online class because then I didn't have to go anywhere. Just so I started the school back in right before Karen dropped out because of that whole mess with Karen. And then I started again in 2002.
Okay. And this is where you're going to the school itself, and you're bringing the study groups back to the house to where Dale can meet the people at your list, so he kind of knows, yeah, I'm actually going to school, I'm not at the mall shopping, doing whatever.
Exactly.
So one of the people that you met at school
Was Stan.
is Stan. Did you meet him then when you started going in 2002?
I met him when I started going before Karen.
Okay.
And then I dropped out. And then I'd stop by the school sometimes just to like, in the middle of the day, have a life and say hi to a few people that I knew. Because April was there, and there were a couple of people that I really enjoyed being friends with, but unfortunately it wasn't quite that easy to.
Right.
And sometimes I stopped by and I'd say hi to Stan. We weren't close friends at that time, we were just friends. But in 2002 is when we became really close friends. And Stan actually Dale actually liked Stan because Stan came and fixed stuff up here, which was pissing Dale off really bad. And I said, you know, there's someone at school that can fix that. And I introduced him to Stan, and he was like, well, and yeah. Got to know Stan, and Stan was like, well, I can fix this, and he fixed it, and then he loaded on like some video game that Dale became mega obsessed with playing.
Okay.
And Dale was thinking he couldn't do coach friends. They weren't. Dale always complained that Stan was one who could be really, really close with on some levels because he's just with his he's never going to be like that. And we all know that. But he likes Stan's company, or at least he always says so.
How did you met him through classes then?
Yeah.
And how did you guys become, because you go to these classes, how did you become such good friends?
Wow, yeah. One of the other sections that was graduating, that would have been when I graduated if I hadn't stopped, was doing their little graduation, go out for the night, get together, right? And they invited a couple of us who weren't graduating yet. And I called Dale and said, I would like to go. And he was like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, these are all the people I'm working with. And he's like, okay. And we're all there, Stan's there. And Stan and I have talked off and on because he's helped me with some of the stuff in my computer classes. He wasn't in my computer class, but he was always in the computer area.
Okay.
So I learned that he was a good person to go to for a resource. It's like, I'm having trouble with this one. Literally,
You find those girl, you gotta hang out with them. You're like me.
He was a godsend for some of the classes that I only needed because I needed stupid credit hours. It wasn't something I ever was going to do in my freaking life. I don't ever want to do any type of programming ever. I think it is the worst thing in the world. But man, if you're going to make me take the credit hours, I'm going to hang on to this person because I know when I have a question, he's going to help me get it solved so that I can get on with my life. And so Stan was there, and I, was congratulating some of my friends who had met back before I dropped out with Kieran, and I said, I haven't done a shot. Okay, me, here I am. Brilliant. I don't drink that much anyway. I'm lightweight, so I'm a normally designated driver. And I bought everybody a watermelon pucker.
Okay.
And this is actually how Stan opened the door for me to bring him back to my house and be like, dude, Dale, you gotta talk to these guys. It's freaking hilarious. You really gotta get to know them. Stan just looked at me and was like, what? Because I'm black? You smell like watermelon? And I mean, it just opened the door for, oh, I'm gonna joke like that. And it was just always he always had playful banter of fun things like, I mean, just typical stereotypes. I'll guarantee you, he is a fried chicken man like there's no tomorrow. Watermelon, he will run in the opposite direction. He does not swim. And so he would always make jokes about things he liked and didn't like. And so when I brought around Dale's personality is very similar in the fact that if you could find something to make fun of it. So the two of them would feed each other. Yeah. And sometimes that would get pretty bad. And at that time he didn't live with us. He would come over and visit as a friend.
Okay.
He didn't move in with us until the 80s South Pearl Drive house.
Well, how did you find out that during the course of knowing him from that he had some type of, you said brain injury?
See, at school, I just thought, okay, he's just a little peculiar, but I never got a bad feeling from him. There's people you get a bad feeling from, and then there's people you're just like, okay, he drinks beer on drum, and occasionally I catch on. Cool. I just always thought Stan was one of those. I mean, he was always extremely quiet, normal, but then he'd have his moments of just hilarious outbursts. I never realized that for the first 2 years, back when I was just going back and visiting his schools, that he didn't know who I was. So I, was like, hey, how you doing? I didn't realize that he would have to pull out a stupid little piece of paper from his wallet to remember who I was. I had no clue. He was very good at hiding that he had a problem. And then actually when he first moved in with us, I knew a little bit about it, and Dan and I knew a little bit, but and he kept notes about who he had lunch to, and stuff. I was like, well, geez, all of us should do that. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't until he moved in and we got to see more of the inabilities.
Well, how long did you know him before he moved in with you guys?
It would have been, it was true, 5th grade. rented an apartment and we sold our house in Glendale.
Okay.
And we rented an apartment over here. And we go to let the dogs out. Dogs got invited somebody else's dog. Yeah, he got our apartment. We had a week to find the place to live. We had rent for that month. We could pay rent for that month, but we didn't have the deposit or anything. We didn't, Sam was coming into our apartment at that time, and he heard our apartment. Was like, well, my lease comes up next month. He says, why don't we just, and all of us kind of look at each other, we can rent a house for that, and it's like, cool, let's pull our money, and we rented a house, and it had, plenty of rooms, and he had his own room, so it wasn't like he was sleeping on the couch, and it was actually kind of nice having him there, but at that time he was working.
Where was he working?
What's the place called? Seasonville? Or
was it like computer related type of thing? Okay.
Yeah.
So he was in the computer field.
Yeah. And he was there, and so he was working, so he wasn't home all the time, so it wasn't stressful either.
Were you still at home with the girls?
I was at home with the girls, but I was also, I transferred to the Mesa division. I've gone to Mesa, the 2P division of ASU, and wound up having to retake quite a few classes that didn't transfer over because they weren't recognized, which sucks.
I'm on a 13-year plan, I think.
I think by the time I'm done with my degree completely, I will never want to see anything that is related to it ever again. So that was...
So you guys moved in together.
Yeah.
How's your relationship with Dad now?
Actually really good this time.
What do you attribute that to?
The less stress in the house because there was someone else to help with chores. Because Stan would come in, like, if I'm washing dishes, he would come right up to it and just start washing dishes and put them in the dish rack for me. Or if I'm sweeping, he'd go and, fold some laundry or something because he thought, oh, it's work time. And
right.
I didn't realize that was just... He
just pitched in.
Yeah. Well, it was just that he could have walked out of the room and been like, I'm going to go get coffee, and then halfway through, be like, what was I doing? Oh, we're cleaning, and I didn't realize he did that. I still wasn't quite clued in that he was quite that able to use.
So things are a little bit better between you and Dad now that he's come in. And it sounds like when you went back to school, things, you were bringing the group over and things were kind of going along. You guys were living your lives. Hold on a second. No, it's not now. All right. This morning is that this supposed to give you a little color in your skin. I can turn my head to work, so I'm not scared now.
Which brand is it?
But Matt Celine. And I look in the mirror and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm turning colors or what. I'm not jaundiced, so if you're looking at me thinking, oh, what the heck's wrong with her?
No, I'm too tired at this point to really notice much of anything right now.
Okay, so he's moved in. Things are going a little bit better. What do you know about this brain injury? I mean, what were you told?
I was told that he had gotten in an accident with a motorcycle.
Okay.
A car had hit him, and that he had post-concussive syndrome is what they call it. Which, if you read this, is like the biggest umbrella for any fucking thing they can't diagnose. Post-concussive syndrome.
Concussive syndrome. Don't think I've heard of it, but it's definitely worth looking up.
Basically, it's, like I said, the biggest umbrella. Everything that was under there could be subdivided into an actual disease that they've named, an actual, symptom of a disease, or something that they just can't figure out quite why you do it. Now, I went to some of the VA meetings with him because he's a vet.
Okay.
And
did this happen when he was in the military? Okay.
And so I, luckily enough, was able to get some of the information from the doctors, and they explained to me that his short-term memory, he had all of his previous memories, but he doesn't have the emotional attachment to his previous memories.
Okay.
And they said that's very normal.
Right.
And then that his short-term memory doesn't always feed into his long-term. So some things will feed through, but it's not a pattern, it's not something you expect. Like, he can remember the weirdest crap out of a conversation or a day. You could be sitting there and you're like, okay, do you remember when we discussed this? And they're like, no, but I remember you wore an orange shirt. And like, you remember I had an orange shirt on, but you can't remember this? We had an hour and a half long conversation. No. And that gets a little frustrating, and as he gets worse, it gets more frustrating.
Is he taking prescription medication for that?
He takes, they gave him medication for, well, I'm starting to feel like they just are giving him a bottle to not have to actually deal with the problem.
Does he go to the VA for his medical?
For all of his medical.
Okay.
And
the one down in Phoenix there?
He goes to the one that's at the AC junction, which is going to be moving here anytime now. The Southwest, is that what they call it? The Southeast.
The campus?
Yeah, there's an outlet, there's a branch there.
Yeah, I think I know that.
Just for primaries, though.
Okay.
Everything else he has to go down. I think for like the neurology and the psychoneurologist and the...
So he's taking quite a bit of medication.
Well, he's on medication, but they're like to prevent headaches.
He gets headaches bad?
He gets headaches really bad, and so they gave him a medicine that, from my understanding, it also is used as a blood thinner. So it reduces the headache, and then he has stuff when he actually has a headache to help him, but he gets really bad headaches, so he has to sleep for 2 days.
Really?
And don't turn the light, leave me alone, don't hear anything, he'll close his door and just disappear from the world. And that's what he has to deal with. And I'm getting my hopes up with that, and I'm okay with it. But he's getting worse, and I've been fighting with the VA.
When you say he's been getting worse, what is
He's losing time.
He's losing time?
He's losing more time, he's losing...
As far as not being able to remember things?
He's losing days.
So he can't remember what happened for days. When did this start?
He started getting worse at the 3 Blizzard on this one of his house, which was the next.
Okay.
And he really started showing signs of getting worse. Before that, it was, okay, maybe he's just, and in between, okay, he's getting worse. When I admitted he was getting worse, I guess,
Yeah.
I was just like, all right, maybe he's just using it because now he knows I'll forgive him if he says I forgot or I don't remember. And I started pushing a little harder, and then pushing harder is when I started going, holy shit, this is not good. And that's when I started really getting involved in the VA.
Does he have family?
He does, but they not believe in the fact that they're sometimes they refuse to admit it because that's their goal. not to
Is it
mention-
part of their religion?
No, their daughter screwed herself up on drugs,
Yeah.
and so their second child is not allowed to be screwed up.
So he has no contact with them?
He has contacted them, but it's very minimal. I mean, they'll call. I have their number, and they'll call, and we would like to stop by, or will you guys come to stop by? And I'm like, yeah, sure, and we've scheduled trips down there, the whole family's come down there. And they know that we take our stand, and they're okay with that.
Is he capable of making decisions for himself?
Sometimes.
Okay, so if something happens, who is going to be making decisions for him, like the power of attorney
I
or
have
something?
power of attorney right now.
And his parents don't?
No,
Okay.
I did.
So you went through the courts and,
We filed out the paperwork because I needed to, actually it's not filed in the attorney's office, but it didn't have to be filed until we needed to present it. From my understanding, as long as it was prepared and signed by all of us and recognized, then as long as it's on file with the attorney, whenever it becomes necessary to be needed, then we can file it with the court and they can. Because at this time I really don't need to have complete control over, because I want him to try to use his checking accounts. I want him to try to, those are all building tools to keep him from getting worse faster and faster. And if he gives up, then there's no purpose.
so you've noticed that in the past year, you've seen a dramatic change in what's going on.
Oh yeah.
What about, as far as working? When was the last time you worked?
He got fired January of 2008.
So a year ago. And that was the computer company he was working for?
Yeah, we actually took a family vacation and we scheduled it, and then they told him his vacation was gone, that they were taking away his vacation time. He worked there for years, never taken a vacation.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, man, just go on a vacation. I mean, we've already booked it. You already took your time. We would have booked a cruise spot for you if you hadn't, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, all right, I'll go on a vacation. You know, I've earned it. I've been here for this many years. And then he got back and immediately got fired.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they weren't very cool about it. And it was crappy because he used to work every single Christmas because his family was our family. So if he came home late for Christmas, we were still there, you know. What's up in your gift? What's up in this? You know, it didn't matter if he worked because we were okay with that and we were available, you know, when he was ready to celebrate. And so he would get everybody, you know, they worked their birthday off. He worked their birthday, and it was really crappy that they treated him.
Could he just not find another job after that? Or?
Well, that's when he started declining so bad.
Okay, after he lost his job.
And,
So no income?
but he
coming in?
lost his job because he was unable to follow the patterns that needed to be done for the proper procedures, which is completely relevant to not being able to remember, you know, a day-by-day pattern.
Okay.
So trying to get him a job is very difficult because I have to find one that doesn't care that he doesn't remember that it's not Tuesday and that it's Thursday. And that, you know, that doesn't have a list of 20 checkpoints that he has to do. And I haven't been able to find him one like that. And so he has the disability coming in and the unemployment, which he'll actually be losing here soon. But we've also been fighting for 2 years now with the VA to have his disability upped because.
So you take him for his appointments?
Oh yeah.
Does he drive?
Sometimes he drives.
Okay.
When I know he's in a stellar, I'll let him drive.
So he has a valid driver's license?
Yes, he does have a valid driver's license. He hasn't lost that ability yet. The
Okay.
way I like to describe Stan is Stan reminds me of a 14-year-old child. Every day is lived for that day, totally have fun, have a blast, no thought about tomorrow. And that's what Stan reminds me of.
So no responsibilities?
No.
You take care of his finances for him?
I like said he has a checking account that I let him balance, but I make sure he pays his bills.
Okay.
So yeah, and it's gotten worse since he, you know, the bills, but the bills aren't that bad of a problem. The bill makes enough to cover our bills. And, you know, we have a beautiful house and we have, you know, beautiful kids and we have a really
well, you guys, everything seems to be going.
Well, we were in the car house,
Pretty good.
everything seems to be going really well. Then we moved to the Loma Vista house. And the Loma Vista house, we started having some fights again and some arguments over bills and money management. And that's what our arguments are always about. It's kind of just, do we have electricity? Do we have water? Do we have food? Do we have a roof over it? Shut up! It's like, okay, so you want to do something fun. Well, if you would take your level of fun from, hi, I need to buy a sand rail, to, let's go to the park, you could do it. But he can't do that either. Bill always wants to make her better. He always says he's not materialistic, but he's the first one to pitch in though. And, like, we're tight, so we can't go to the movies. Okay, let's go to the TV. You know, or let's talk about our own ones.
Yeah.
Just make popcorn and we'll sit in the blankets and we'll sit in the blankets and their couch. For a day, I was like, oh, never mind. You know, it's like, why? The point of going to the movies is to spend time together. Yes, the movie would be cool, but the point of going to the movies is to spend time together with us, and that one never worked. We met our friends Jeff and Kelly Kirshen, and they were pretty good for me, like, I knew a lot. I stayed with them too, and they were hanging out at our house, and at that time, in the 340, we were also having Jim Briggs and her husband, I can't remember his name, Sean Vincent, Jen and Sean Vincent. I remember her by her maiden name, sorry. And we had them over, and you know, we did barbecues because they were inexpensive, but we could have friends over, and they could bring some substitutes, and we could have fun. And they had kids, so their kids would play with our kids, and the grown-ups could have grown-up time, and it wasn't like they had to go anywhere. And okay, so I had to clean up the table after they left, big deal. You know, and that was being nice, but then I got too buddy-buddy with Kelly.
Okay.
And Kelly was, you know, it was cool to have a girlfriend. It was really cool to have a girlfriend. And I didn't like that.
You didn't like that she had somebody else outside the house.
And so I had to go do things with Kelly, and the kids were in school, so it wasn't like I was really taking time for anyone. But, you know, just go out and have coffee in the morning and meet for coffee and sit there and talk for an hour and a half, and then I'd go and, you know, clean the house and then be ready for the kids to come home. That was a horrible crime. I mean, that was horrible crime. And I just didn't know, I don't know why. I can't help
Is there any abuse going on?
Well, that's what I think. That's when it started.
Back up again?
Back up. He got me wanting to do things with my girlfriend. Because then she'd invite me, you know, well, let's go to the theater. I have tickets to the theater tonight, you know.
Yeah.
Or I have tickets to the theater in 2 weeks. You want to go? And I talked to Bill about it. It's 2 weeks. How hard can it be? So I can watch the kids if, you know, if he's too tired, and he can invite Jeff over, and Jeff and the other kids can all play together. Well, you know, so, and Jeff is Kelly's husband. And I was like, you guys could go do a guy thing. The kids could all stay in the stand. And because even though Stan's, like I said, like a 14-year-old kid, the worst that's going to happen, they're not going to burn down the house. They're going to eat a whole bunch of junk food, and they're going to play way too many darn video games. And I mean, that's Stan's mentality. And I'm totally okay with that. That's a great babysitter. As far as I'm concerned, that's an awesome babysitter. And occasionally he makes sure to clean up their mess before you get home, so you come home and you don't necessarily know how much junk they've eaten until you go to the pantry. But I like that one too.
But they're up on that bouncing off the walls.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I used to...
So you're spending time with Kelly. That was not digging it.
At all. And he actually... in the garage we had a fight. He likes to shove. He likes to push and shove. He likes to make sure you know you can't fight back. Because he always makes sure you're off balance and there's nothing you can do about it. He's done that the whole time. I've never learned enough to be able to counter or anticipate. And I'm hoping that I won't have to, but that doesn't seem to be
one that you were telling me about today?
No. That was a different one. Popped my shoulder out of joint and Jeff and Kelly were actually there. And we put the bruises in after. Because they had colored.
Did you go to the hospital?
I did not go to the hospital. Jeff
What's your therapist?
reset my arms and told me I really needed to consider what the hell I was doing.
Did they, and that's when you guys were living on Laura and Melissa?
Yeah.
Jeff, did they live in Gilbert?
Yes. And then over to
Jeff Benson?
Jeff and Kelly Kirschen. And Jenny and Sean Benson were the couples that they were having.
What would you do? Would you tell them?
Councils
I'm
are
sure
trying to
you
take
would.
care of
Is I
over.
don't really see anyone else in quite large. I just
Okay.